Welcome, Ukraine war. Today, President Volodymyr Zelensky decried Russia as an evil state after a fatal attack on residences in Sloviansk. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin signed a bill to ease conscription in Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there has not been a single hour without Russian killings and terror in the past week. He made the remarks during his nightly address after Russian missiles struck residential buildings in the eastern Ukrainian city of Sloviansk on Friday. This is an evil state, and it will lose. To win is our duty to humanity as such, and we will win, Zelensky said. According to Ukrainian sources, at least 11 people, including a 2-year-old child, were killed, more than 20 were injured and several are still missing. Several houses and high-rise buildings were hit in the strike. Pavlo Kirilenko, governor of the Donetsk region, said no fewer than 7 spots were hit in Sloviansk, west of Bakhmut, the center of the war's heaviest fighting. Sloviansk and the nearby city of Kramatorsk are both coveted by Russian forces, currently bogged down in nearby Bakhmut, as they push ahead with their invasion of Ukraine. On Friday, a British assessment said Ukrainian troops had been forced to withdraw from parts of Bakhmut. Ukrainian military commanders this week rejected Russian statements that its forces now controlled 80% of the city, saying Moscow's claims were an exaggeration. The construction of a barbed wire fence has begun along Finland's southeastern border with Russia, near the town of Imatra. Finland's border guard said that the erection of approximately 3 kilometers, 1.8 miles, of fencing had begun near Imatra and described it as a new and significant part of border control. Finland shares a 1,320-kilometer, 832-mile, border with Russia, the longest of any EU member state. The section of the fence is expected to be completed by June 2023. Finland became a member of NATO April 4, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine seen as being the primary reason the Baltic state pushed to join the alliance after decades of non-alignment. Poland has banned imports of grain and other food from Ukraine to protect local farmers, ruling party leader Yaroslav Kaczynski said. Large quantities of Ukrainian grains have transited through the EU to other countries after Russia's invasion of Ukraine blocked the usual Black Sea routes. Part of that supply is now piling up in Eastern Europe and driving down local prices, which led to protests from farmers and resignation of Poland's agriculture minister earlier this month. Today the government decided on a regulation to ban the entry, imports of grain into Poland, as well as of dozens of other kinds of food, Kaczynski said at a convention of his right-wing Law and Justice Peace party. Kaczynski stressed that Poland was still standing by Ukraine, saying, "We remain, without even the slightest change, friends and allies of Ukraine." Parliamentary elections are set to be held in Poland later this year to elect members of the lower house of the parliament, the Sejm, and the Senate. Fighters of Russia's Wagner mercenary group have captured 2 more areas of the Ukrainian town of Bakhmut, Russia's defense ministry said. Wagner assault units have successfully advanced, capturing 2 districts on the northern and southern outskirts of the city, the ministry said in a briefing. It was not possible to independently confirm the report. Bakhmut has become a fixation of military commanders despite having little strategic value, leading to a brutal 9-month war of attrition. Ukrainian troops have been forced to withdraw from some territory in Bakhmut as Russia mounts a renewed assault there with intense artillery fire over the past 2 days, Britain said in an intelligence update on Friday. According to Russian the ministry, Ukrainian troops, while retreating, are deliberately destroying city infrastructure and residential buildings in order to slow the advance of Moscow's forces. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called on the United States to stop encouraging war in Ukraine and start talking about peace. Speaking to reporters at the end of a visit to Beijing for talks with President Xi Jinping, Lula said the European Union also needs to start talking about peace. He said the international community would then be able to convince the Russian and Ukrainian leaders that peace is in the interest of the whole world. Lula's visit to China, Brazil's top trading partner, focused on strengthening ties and spreading the message that Brazil is back as a key player on the global stage. Unlike Western powers, neither China nor Brazil has imposed sanctions against Russia after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, and both seek to position themselves as mediators to achieve peace. Before the trip, Lula had proposed creating a group of countries to mediate in the war and said he would discuss this in Beijing. But the Brazilian president is walking a fine line as he also seeks closer ties with Washington. Germany's economics minister has called on the European Union to expand its sanctions on Russia into the nuclear energy field. In statements to the German DPA news agency on Saturday, Robert Habeck said Russia was selling nuclear energy to EU countries to generate revenue, as it strives to fund its war on Ukraine. The minister stressed the importance of Europe achieving full independence from Russia across the EU. We have already come a long way in many areas, including energy. The nuclear sector is still open, he said. Russia is a uranium supplier of nuclear fuel rods. It also stores radioactive waste on its territory. The German minister noted the extremely sensitive nature of nuclear technology. He warned that Russia can no longer be considered a reliable partner, DPA reported. Habeck called on the EU to add the nuclear sanctions to its coming round. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed legislation allowing electronic notices for draftees and reservists. Russia's military service rules previously mandated in-person delivery of notices to conscripts and reservists for duty. Now, local military conscription offices will send notices via mail, which will be considered valid once they are posted on a state portal for electronic services. In the past, many Russians avoided the draft by staying away from their address of record. The new law fueled fears that the government was considering another wave of mobilization following the one that Putin ordered in the fall. Britain's defense ministry said in its latest intelligence briefing that the new measures don't specifically indicate a major new wave of enforced mobilization,